welcome back 4L Scholars. So today, I think this is Friday, hard to tell what day it is sometimes, what we're going over is, well, how to use all that verb stuff, all that ending stuff, you know, the grammar notes, everything we just looked at. How to use it to you know, figure out what's going on with verbs. So as I said, you know, a couple of days ago, with our you know, first grammar notes on verbs, it's really, really, really important that you know what conjugation a verb is. Okay, you probably noticed this when we were going through in our last video with you know, the endings charts, right? That video with all the boxes on it. Well, for a lot of them, you really do have to know what conjugation the verb is to be able to know what's going on. So I want to show you real quick how you can tell just by looking at the verb what conjugation it is. We'll do like 2 or 3 of these, then we'll move on to the next section. We'll do a couple of those, then move on to the next section. We'll do a couple of those, and then at the end, as usual, I'll show you really slowly, scrolling Star Wars style, I'll show you what you know, what all the answers are. So, but please do, you know, make sure you pause the video before that. Get the answers yourself first, and then check your answers, okay? Don't just copy the answers, because after all, that doesn't do anything for you. It gives you handwriting practice, I guess, but that's not really important right now. What is important is that you know how this stuff works, and if you don't try, you'll never get there. Okay, so let's give it a shot. So, in part 1, again, we're identifying the conjugation. To identify the conjugation of any verb in Latin, you just have to know that you do the following steps. You go to the second principal part, so we have all 4 principal parts here. You go to the second part, okay, you chop off the RE, and then when you get rid of the RE, the last letter that you're left with is what's called your stem vowel. Okay, there are 4 stem vowels in the Latin language, 1 for each of the 4 conjugations. All right, so what those correspond to is, if your stem vowel is a long A, it's a first conjugation. If it's a long E, it's second. If it's a short E, it's third. And if it's a long I, it's fourth. Okay, so let's do a couple of these. We already started number 1, so I see that we have a long E. So what conjugation is a long E? Second. Okay. Let's look at number 2. We have naro, narare, narawi, naratum. Go to your second principal part. Chop off the RE. You're left with a long A. Long A, oh, first conjugation. Okay. And you can do this for all of them. We'll just skip down, I don't know, number 6. Mugio, mugire, mugiwi, mugitum. One of my favorite Latin verbs, the verb for to moo, like a cow. So you go to your second principal part. Chop off the RE. You're left with a stem of long I, which means this one is 4th conjugation. Works like a 4th. Okay? So hopefully, you know, that seems pretty simple to you once you know what those steps are. Again, remember, you go to your second principal part, chop off the RE. Whatever your stem vowel is, shows you what conjugation the verb is. All right? So, again, at the end, we'll have the answers here you can double check against. Let's move on to part 2. This one's a little bit trickier. What we're doing here is we are, well, I give you a verb, and it's already conjugated. It already has its ending on. And your job is to identify the 5 characteristics. Remember those 5 characteristics from our grammar notes? So every verb in Latin, and English for that matter, has person, number, tense, mood, and voice, right? Is it first, second, third? Is it singular, plural? Is it, well, one of the 6 tenses? You know, what mood is it? Is it indicative? Is it imperative? Is it an infinitive? Or is it subjunctive? Well, we don't really know the subjunctive yet. We do, but we don't. So you can rest assured there's no subjunctive on here. And then voice, is it active or passive? I'll give you a hint. To keep things simple, I kept all of these active. So for almost all of them, they end indicative active. Anyway, so what we do is, that verb ending is packed full of meaning. We look at the verb and we say, okay, well, what's the ending? What letters does it end in? And kind of immediately here, you see it ends in BAM, B-A-M, which you remember from our review, the last video on the different endings. Okay, so. And by the way, if you don't have that handy, I recommend you grab that now. Have it with you. I mean, I have mine right here. So it's right here, so I can just look at it if I need to. Especially helpful when you're doing a video and trying to talk fast. So what we have here is, I look at this, I see it ends in BAM. And if I look at my chart, well, do I see BAM anywhere? Oh yeah, right here. BAM. Okay, most of the endings, the vast majority of them only show up, in one exact spot. So as long as you identify the ending, you can figure out exactly what all the information is, all the characteristics. So for BAM, I see that it is first person. I see that it is singular. Well, let's go ahead and write that. So first, you can abbreviate here too. Singular, SG. What tense is it? Oh, imperfect. You can either write imperfect or you can abbreviate it like imperfect. And it is indicative and active. And you can feel free to abbreviate those as well. Indic, act. All right. And number one is done. All right. One just really quick thing though, there are times when you might be tricked into only looking at the very last letter. Make sure that you're going back just a little bit, making sure that you're cutting off the ending at a place you can actually do that. But what I mean by that is look for one of these stem vowels like we talked about up above, or if it's built from the third principal part, very often your stem will end in a V. So it's not a perfect system, but it's just ways of making sure that you have the whole ending instead of digging all around and not being sure. So for that matter, let's look at number 2. So we have the word narawisti. I look at this and I say, okay, well, it ends in long I, but let's go back a little bit because T is kind of, I just know from experience, T is a little bit weird to have as a stem letter. So let's keep going. Let's see, we have T. Well, that's not an ending. Sti, that's not an ending. Oh, isti, that's an ending. So we can go ahead and underline that. And if we look back, so narawisti here, as you can kind of look up here and notice on the third principal part for a lot of verbs, you cut off the ending and you have a V. So that was kind of my clue as I was looking at this word that, isti is probably our ending. Okay, so we have that ending, we've identified it. Also, if you notice by now, this is the perfect stem. So we're in the perfect system here. So we can look on the back side of our sheet. And let's see, do we see isti anywhere? Oh, there it is. So we see that it's second person, it's singular. Second, singular. It's perfect. We can just say PF or write perfect. It's indicative, active. Excuse me. And number 2 is done. Okay, so you can follow those steps for all of them. Number 11 is a little tricky, but the hint is the exclamation mark. So don't go crazy looking for that one. The ending is not on the sheet because of the mood that it's in. So you'll see that in just a second anyway when we go through the answers. Okay, quickly let's go to the back here, and on part 3, you're conjugating the verb. So you're going the opposite direction. I give you all 4 principal parts, and then I tell you that I want the following characteristics. So for number 1, we have wideo, widere, widi, wisum, and I want it to be third person, singular, present, indicative, active. Okay? So, we know it's going to be third person singular. Now, we notice that since it's present, we're going to be on the front side of our verb endings chart, okay? Because that's where the present tense stuff is. So, present tense, and we know it's going to be present indicative, active. Oh, here we go. Present indicative, active. Third person singular. So we know our ending is going to be T. So we can actually write that in. It's sort of backwards, but we can write that in so we won't forget. And now we just remember that for verbs in the present system, we go to the second principal part, chop off the RE, and then add the ending. So first, second principal part, chop off the RE, and widet is our verb. Don't worry about that magic disappearing long mark. We can talk about that a little bit later. Not super important right now. Let's go ahead and we'll look at one that maybe is a little bit different here. How about number 7? We have moeo, moere, moi, motum. And we want it to be third person, sorry if you didn't see that, moeo, moere, moi, motum. It's going to be third person, plural, future perfect, indicative, and it's going to be passive. So let's pay close attention to that. All right, well, we see the word perfect, so we know it's going to be in the perfect system. So we take our verb chart, flip it over. We know it's perfect passive, okay? Or excuse me, future perfect passive. So here's future perfect active, but we're over here. So future perfect passive. Remember what we do for that? We take the fourth principal part and then add the future of sum. So ero, eris, remus, eritis, erunt. Well, let's look at which one we need. All right, future perfect, third person plural. Okay, so first things first, again, we need our fourth principal part. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have motum. Okay, and a little bit tricky here since we didn't really talk about this on our verb charts, but since motum, actually the noun ending here is singular, but our verb is going to be plural, we can actually change that noun ending just to something that is plural. So if you go back to the noun video, you know that one of the common noun endings is a long I. Could be AE, could be a bunch of different things. Really, we just want it to be plural. Although for now, that's not the most important thing. Most important thing is that you use your fourth principal part, and then you get the form of sum you need for the future perfect. So in the third person plural, it's erunt. And that's our answer, moti erunt. All right, 2 separate words because that's how the perfect passive system works. Okay, I'm going to let you have let you have a crack at the rest of them. Again, I'm going to show you the answers here for part 1, part 2, and then part 3, nice and slowly. You can pause the video at any point. Probably a good idea to pause it now so that you can try these things out, and then then go back and look at the answers after you've tried it for yourself. Okay. Again, I'm not going to collect this. I don't give you a grade for exactly this. This is your practice for next week. Okay. So please do the practice. Pause that video now, and I will show you the answers in a second after you unpause. Thank you, scholars. All right, so here are your answers. Again, not going to go through these. Just you can have them. If you have any specific questions about any of these, please feel free to email me. Just be specific so I know which one you're talking about. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to scroll up nice and slowly here. Again, feel free to pause the video at any time so you can double check your own answers. Getting down to part 2 here, you'll notice I've abbreviated almost everything, but hopefully you can tell which endings are which. Again, you can pause the video now here to to have these endings, or excuse me, to have, you know, to check your answers. All right, and I'll go ahead and flip it over and scroll for part 3. I think you probably found part 3 was the most challenging. You see, I even made a mistake the first time when I was doing it, so don't feel bad. You know, we learn by making mistakes. Okay, that's never a problem as long as you correct your mistake. Okay. Again, you can pause the video at any point to double check your own answers. Okay, and you can also pause here. So, thank you again for watching, scholars, and as always, let me know what those questions are. Don't just let me know that you have questions, let me know what those questions are, and I'm happy to help you with them. All right, until next time.